All right, folks, before we get to our next guest, very briefly, something I want to pursue next week. Kirsten Gillibrand, senator from New York, who's pushing for stronger laws against rapes on college campuses, was asked about the UVA, the woman who claimed she was gang raped, and it turned out there's no evidence of that. Should she be punished? She said, I think it's inappropriate. Victim blaming or shining the spotlight on her for coming forward is not the right approach. But did she tell the truth? All right, let's watch Rachel Maddow.
Bottom line is that in Tikrit, directly, the U.S. is helping Iran, and Iran is helping us in the fight against ISIS. As oogie as that makes everybody feel. And just to make it all the more discomforting, while we are fighting with Iran against ISIS in Iraq, we are also now supporting a whole new war against Iranian interests in the nation of Yemen.
All right, the question has to be asked, how the heck is Iran pulling this off? What are we, a bunch of morons? And there might be a good answer to that, and we'll hopefully get it from Dr. Zuhdi Jasser, founder and president of American Islamic Forum for Democracy, and of course author of A Battle for the Soul of Islam, an American Muslim Patriot's Fight to Save His Faith. There it is on your screen. Doctor, welcome back. What is going on? How does the United States justify fighting alongside Iran, being an ally to Iran in one region, in one country, in one area, and fighting against Iran in another region not too far away, and at the same time pursuing this ridiculous agreement? I mean, how schizophrenic are we?
It's the bottom line, Steve, is we don't have a lens, we don't have a value system that we're using. This post-American president, while he golfs in Florida, is not really advancing our values. He really simply wants to be at the table to somehow have this, what I think would be a horrible legacy with nuclear talks. And let me just tell you one thing that just was on Iranian media this morning. Do you know that the Iranian soldiers in Tikrit took their weapons and ran in protest? Why? Because some American soldiers and allies showed up to help them against ISIS, and they said, you know what, we're not fighting alongside you, and they ran away. That's what I read this morning, just a few hours ago. So this is how bizarre. They are basically telling us what to do and thumping their chests against us because we are no longer the world superpower. And that's, as a former naval officer, I can't tell you how embarrassing and how upsetting and distressing it is to see American power not only no longer influencing, but being stepped on in a Middle East that is ablaze today. Certainly we may have a common enemy with Iran, but they are the primary enemy against American interest, fueling global terrorism,
right,
fueling radical Islam and an end of times eschatology, which if they got the nuclear bomb would just be horrific.
And of course Benjamin Netanyahu said, and pointing out to that we're fighting alongside Iran against ISIS, that in this case the enemy of your enemy is your enemy. I wonder when Hezbollah attacks Israel the next time, whose side are we going to be on there?
It's crazy, and you know the analogy really is sort of if the police or the FBI are fighting gangs or mafia families inside inner city New York, Chicago, whatever it is, you don't take the side of one family versus the other. Righteousness will defeat both, and I think ultimately this is what's happening in the Middle East. You have the Sunni royal families now at war against the Shiite Islamists, and both sides ultimately are going to hate one another, and we may have in various battles, like in Yemen, we're going to take more of the side of the king there, Hadi, who now ran away to Saudi Arabia. But ultimately, do you think his ideas of freedom are ours? He is going to radicalize his population. I mean, compare Yemen to Syria. In Syria, the Saudis did not bomb the Syrian regime, which was with Iran. They sort of let it fester, let it radicalize. They fueled the ISISes of Syria so that now we have the problem we have, and they say, oh, we're on your side against ISIS, when in fact they are probably the reason Syria turned into what it did. If Syria had been run by a king, Sunni king and dictator like Yemen, they would have bombed the heck out of the revolution, which is exactly what they're doing in Yemen.
And Doctor, how much culpability does Barack Obama playing golf and not taking the lead and not exercising American leadership and exceptionalism and using the greatest military on the face of the earth, how much culpability does he have?
Well, as we see when the forces of Iran leave when we show up, if we were showing up, we would you would have a whole different equation in the Middle East. So, you know, for the president to say on Vice News a couple weeks ago that ultimately, well, this is all unintended consequences of us invading Iraq, that's nonsense. ISIS came out of Syria, so culpability, he's our commander-in-chief. He has no strategy. He's supposed to lead us into and out of war. All he cares about is pulling troops away, and that vacuum is creating the greatest source of jihadists around the planet that threatens us today more than ever.
Doctor, great to talk to you, sir. Thank you very much.
Anytime. Thanks,
All right,
Steve.
take care. Up next, Jeffrey Gardier, America's psychologist. We'll talk about the pilot who took the plane down into the French Alps. What could have been going on in his mind? Don't go away.